my specialty is the skin, but really one of the main things that I like to talk about, and one of the main points of all my presentations is that the body breaks down generically. And whether you have it break down in the nervous system and it shows up as Alzheimer's and cognitive decline or multiple sclerosis, or whether it shows up in the skin as psoriasis or eczema, or whether it shows up as fatty liver disease, or whether your breakdown is cancer or diabetes, it's really all, at the end of the day, they're all really the same kinds of things, because the body is not organ-centric, it's cell-centric. And even though we focus on the different organs in the body, it's really about the cell. And all cells, whether they're liver cells, or whether they're eye cells, or whether they're heart cells, need the same thing. When we're sick, even though we see it at the level of the skin or the liver or various organs of the body, what's really sick is the cell. And all cells need the same thing. Cells have been around for 3.5 billion years, and in the 3.5 billion years, they've evolved to just to require simple things. They require nutrition, they require oxygen, and they require a clean place to do their work. So that if you can figure out how to feed a cell, how to breathe a cell, and how to keep a cell clean, you're going to be healthy and you're going to live a long life. In fact, if you can figure out how to do all of those three things, not only are you going to be healthy and live a long life, but according to a study that just came out yesterday, you can actually reverse the aging process, specifically with something called hyperbaric oxygen. I don't know how many of you guys saw this, but this was an article that came out yesterday that for the first time they've shown that age can be reversed, that we can actually go backwards in time with something as simple as oxygen. Oxygen being one of the 3 basic needs of a cell. Cell needs to be fed, it needs to be breathed, and it needs to have a clean place to do its work. And the only things that go wrong with the cell are starvation, suffocation, and toxification. And this triad of breakdowns, starvation, suffocation, and toxification, at the level of the cell is behind all diseases, no matter what you call them. If you go to the World Health Organization's website, they'll tell you there's 80,000 plus different diagnoses. And I always make this funny joke. I say there's only one disease. Even though we have 84,000 diseases, you guys probably all heard me say this. Even though there's 84,000 diagnoses, 84,000 different ways the body can break down, there's only one disease. It's called MBFA disease. My body is falling apart disease. That's the only disease there is. And we don't want to get off on these tangents of all the different ways the body breaks down. You know, if our body is breaking down at the level of the nervous system, we have multiple sclerosis, or at the level of the muscles, then we have myasthenia gravis, or at the level of the brain, and we have Alzheimer's disease. What we tend to do is we go to different doctors. We go to a doctor who specializes in the brain. We go to a doctor who specializes in nerves. We go to the doctor who specializes in the muscles. We go to specialists. We're obsessed with specialists. Well, anybody who's ever interacted with a specialist, I'd like to know, when was the last time a specialist ever helped somebody with a disease? It doesn't happen, because there's no special diseases. There's only one disease. The body breaks down, and it breaks down at the level of the cell. So why is this important? Well, it means for us in the business, even though we're not healthcare professionals necessarily, we don't have to be, because no matter what the disease state is, if we can address the cell at the level of respiration, nutrition, and detoxification, every single health challenge will begin to improve. Every one of them. Without doctors, without going to medical school, without knowing special protocols and having special understandings of organ systems, all we have to do is figure out how to nutriate the cell, how to respirate the cell, and how to keep the cell clean. That is, keep the cell from being toxic. So that's what I'm talking about here today. But the main point is I want to empower average, regular, lay people with no special understanding about biology or chemistry to be able to reverse and improve all disease conditions. I don't care what you call it. I don't care what part of the body that you're dealing with. If you feed it, we're talking about the cells, but really feed the body and then feed the cells, breathe the body and then breathe the cells, and then keep the cells in the body clean via first detoxification, and secondly, not putting toxins in the body in the first place, everything will improve. That should be the most empowering message anybody has ever heard if they're dealing with a chronic long-term degenerative disease. And in this country, 80% of our healthcare costs are based on these chronic long-term degenerative diseases. And if you understand that all you got to do is breathe, eat, and detoxify, you can see how tragic this condition, on the one hand, how tragic this situation is, but on the other hand, how inspiring it can be if you understand how to leverage these 3 points. So first of all, let's take oxygenation. Oxygenation should be the simplest thing that we do. We just breathe, right? Problem is that when we're under a condition of stress, when we're under what's called fight or flight, we don't breathe correctly. We breathe shallow. And from the time we're born, we are conditioned to be under stress. Even just coming out of the womb and coming into the world through the birth canal is an extremely stressful situation, let alone the traumas a child has to deal with, and then a teenager has to deal with, an adult has to deal with. By the time we're in our 30s or 40s or 50s, we've learned to respond to our environment by activating the stress response. Under conditions of stress, we don't breathe correctly, and you can experience this yourself right now. If you just think about something unpleasant, just in your brain, think about credit card bill, relationship, jobs, the political situation, and notice how when you think of something unpleasant, you stop breathing. Can you see it? Can you guys all see that? How you have a tendency to clench up, and this happens. We don't even know it happens, but it happens over and over and over again, multiple times a day, through over the course of days and weeks and months and years and decades. By the time we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s, we've been conditioned to not breathe correctly, so much so that some people actually find it hard to breathe correctly. So number one, the reason it's number one is because it's the easiest thing for us to do. We have to learn how to breathe correctly. And by breathe correctly, I mean breathing into the belly to where the belly comes out. And then when you're exhaling, blowing air out, pushing the belly in. That's called belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. You have a muscle right in the middle of your body called your diaphragm. And when you breathe in, the diaphragm goes down and the belly goes up. And as you exhale, the diaphragm comes back up. And if any of you guys are singers or speakers, you know that if you want to sing correctly, or if you want to breathe, or if you want to speak correctly, you got to sing from the diaphragm or speak from the diaphragm. And when you do this, by the way, you support, and I'll talk about this in a moment, you support the detoxification system as well. Because one of the ways we detoxify is through the lungs. We exhale. So it's not only a very powerful way to get oxygen into your system and oxygen into the cells, but it's also a great way to detoxify. Not only that, but when the diaphragm goes up and down, it almost acts like a second heart. So it improves blood circulation as well when the diaphragm goes up and down. Not only that, but when the diaphragm goes up and down and when you breathe correctly, you push toxicity through the lymph. And that also has a detoxification benefit. Not only that, but oxygen is alkalinizing. Many of you guys have heard about the importance of blood pH, and a lot of people are concerned about low acid blood and want to know how to alkalinize the blood. Well, you don't need anything fancy to alkalinize the blood because nature designed oxygen to be the primary alkalinizing agent, and carbon dioxide blowing out, carbon dioxide is acidic, blowing off carbon dioxide makes you lose acid. So you're detoxifying, you're improving circulation, you're alkalinizing the blood, and of course, you're oxygenating the cells simply by deep breathing. So everybody, and by the way, slow deep breathing is one of the great ways to lower your blood pressure. And if you have a blood pressure cuff, you can test this out yourself. You can just sit on the couch and put the blood pressure cuff on, take a baseline blood pressure and see what it's at, and then practice slow deep breathing for 5 or 10 minutes and take your blood pressure again, and you'll notice that your blood pressure drops like a stone. In fact, it sounds ironic because it should be the easiest thing in the world to do, but a lot of people have a hard time breathing correctly. If you find that you have a hard time breathing deeply or diaphragmatic breathing or practicing diaphragmatic breathing, sit in a warm bath and do it. It's much easier to breathe deeply in a warm bath because the body is totally relaxed when you're immersed in warm water. So job number one is slow, deep breathing, great for circulation, great for detoxification, great for alkalinization, oxygenates the cells, a whole slew of benefits. And according to research that just came out yesterday, it's also a great way to reverse the aging process. The second thing is nutrition, obviously. And what we call the Mighty 90 essential nutrients are the menu from which a cell eats. The cell has been around for 3.5 billion years, and it has developed a taste for specific foods. Cell's like a miniature person. The cell has a deep excuse me, has a detoxification system. It has a reproductive system. It has a skeletal system. It has a miniature brain. A cell has all of the things that we have, and it likes to eat like we like to eat, except a cell doesn't eat hamburgers and it doesn't eat pizza. It eats the mighty 90 essential nutrients, and that's it. That's all it eats. It eats the mighty 90 essential nutrients. I should say there's a couple other things too, like oxygen and glucose, but the large predominant proportion of the cell's food, if you will, is the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, and the fatty acids that we call the mighty 90 essential nutrients. If anybody ever asks you what the mighty 90 essential nutrients are, you tell them it's the menu from which a cell eats. And without that menu, without a complete menu, the cell cannot be healthy. So what's the best way to get the mighty 90 essential nutrients? Well, obviously, we all know the Healthy Start Pack gives you the mighty 90 essential nutrients, and all the supplements from Youngevity are a great way to get the mighty 90 essential nutrients. There are also cofactors that aren't cell foods, but help protect the cell. They don't go into the cell. The cell doesn't eat these things, but these factors, and I'll tell you what these are in a second, act as guardians to help relax the cell, to protect the cell, and to remove stressors from the cell, or to help the cell deal with stressors. These molecules that help cells deal with stressors are called adaptogens. You may have heard the term adaptogens. An adaptogen is a molecule, and they're mostly found in plants. And we also know them as phytonutrients or phytochemicals. And these substances don't go into a cell to feed the cell, but they protect the cell. They have a guardian-like role to play. And they're also important, even though a cell doesn't eat them. And that's why it's critical to make sure that you're ingesting and eating lots of veggies, a plant material. Best way to get your veggies is in veggie juices. And veggie juices give you a couple of benefits. Number one, it's a great way to get a high concentration of these phytonutrients. But number two, and this is really important, vegetables are a source of liquid, a very special liquid, a magical liquid. It's a type of water, but it's not ordinary water. It's structured water or crystalline water. And this structured water or crystalline water is actually a fourth type of water. If you remember from your high school chemistry or high school physics, there were three phases of water. They call them, there's steam, which is gaseous water. There's water, which is liquid water. And then there's ice, which is solid water. Well, it turns out there's a fourth form of water, which is structured water, i.e. crystalline water or magical water. And the structured water, crystalline water, provides a large proportion of the body. A large proportion of the liquid compartment of the body is structured water. Structured water conducts electricity very effectively, much more effectively than ordinary water. And this is one reason why the body can conduct electrical energy so rapidly from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, because the water is being conducted through this, the electricity is being conducted through this structured water. So where do you get structured water? Veggies. And the higher the water content in the veggie, the more structured water you're getting. So making sure that you're using high water veggies, things like lettuce and cucumber and bell pepper and celery in your juices, will not only provide you with phytonutrients, but will also provide you with structured water. What's more, if you blend your veggies or spin them in a vortex, you amp up the electrical energy. And if you drink your veggies fresh, you're actually going to be drinking this electrically charged structured water substance that's loaded with phytonutrition. The same thing can be accomplished, by the way, with your Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Beyond Tangy Tangerine has nutrients that help structure ordinary water. And there you go. And when you put your Beyond Tangy Tangerine in water and spin it around in a vortex, nice, Jamal. When you put your Beyond Tangy Tangerine in water and spin it around in a vortex, you're drinking structured water. This is really effective for the third phase of taking care of a cell, which is detoxification. One of the all-time great strategies for detoxification doesn't cost you a penny. In fact, this strategy for detoxification that doesn't cost you a penny will actually make you money, because this strategy is fasting. And by fasting, you're not only not costing any money because you don't have to spend money on food, you're actually saving money. So you actually make money while you're detoxifying. It doesn't require anything fancy. You just stop eating. When you stop eating, your body cleans itself like a self-cleaning dishwasher. The same idea. And all you got to do is stop eating. Now, if for folks who have a hard time just not eating anything, a great way to get energy without having to get calories. And by the way, fasting is about having no calories, becoming calorie free. And we talked earlier about how hyperbaric oxygen or oxygenation is a great way to age reverse. Another great way to age reverse is to restrict the amount of calories that you eat on a regular basis. One of the hardest things that we do to our bodies is eat. Now, we all have to eat, but every time we eat food, we activate our body's inflammatory and immune systems. So we all have to eat, but it's kind of like a double-edged sword. And the less you eat, the longer you live. And I can looking at you guys on the video here, I can see most of you guys are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, older. Eating is a young man's game. Eating is for kids. It's not, and we have to get that through our heads. As we get older, we don't need to eat as much. And not changing over as we age, not changing our habits, our eating habits, costs us longevity and quality of life. The less we eat, the longer you live. What has this got to do with structured water and juicing and Beyond Tangy Tangerine? Well, when you drink structured water and Beyond Tangy Tangerine and vegetable juices, you get energy, electrical energy through this vortex, through the vortification, if you will, of the water and the nutrients and the phytonutrients. You get electrical energy without calories. So it's a great great tool to leverage for intermittent fasting or for calorie restriction. Now, on to detoxification. We talked about breathing for detoxification. We talked about intermittent fasting for detoxification. Well, there's other mechanisms that you can use to detoxify. In order to do that, we got to talk about the specific structures in the body that are responsible for detoxification. You have 6 organs of detoxification. Your liver, which everybody knows about, your kidneys, the skin, which people don't think of as an organ of detoxification, the kidneys, the colon, the intestine, and the lymph. Those are your 6 organs of detoxification. For the lungs, you can facilitate detoxification by breathing, obviously. For the liver, you can facilitate detoxification by using bile support and a nutrient called glutathione. Bile is one of the great underappreciated fluids in the body. We all appreciate the blood and we appreciate the tears and the urine and the water, but we don't honor and appreciate the bile. And it turns out bile is your detoxifying fluid. In pharmacy school, you guys all probably know I'm a pharmacist. In pharmacy school, they teach us about how drugs are eliminated. Drugs are either eliminated through the bile or they're eliminated through the kidneys being another organ of detoxification. A lot of hormones are eliminated through the bile. If you have a problem with your bile, you're going to have a problem detoxifying. If you have a problem with your gallbladder, which is a bag of bile, or God forbid you had your gallbladder taken out, you're going to have a problem detoxifying. If you're ingesting a lot of toxins, food toxins, for example, you're eating a lot of gluten, or you're eating other food allergens, if you're allergic to eggs and you're eating eggs, or you're eating a lot of flour, if you're eating things that are hard for the body to process, bile can become sticky and sludgy. If your bile becomes sticky and sludgy, it's not as effective at detoxification. One of the things that bile detoxifies and cleans out is estrogen and hormones. And so if you are a female and you're older, you're going to be more prone towards gallstones. And we know that as women get older, they're more prone towards having gallbladder problems, largely because of this issue with sticky bile. If you're on prescription drugs, many of them are cleaned out by the bile system. So if your bile is sticky and sludgy, you're not going to be detoxifying your prescription drugs as effectively. So taking care of your bile is really important. And this is why I love the ultimate enzymes so much, because the ultimate enzymes are not only a source of enzymes, which everybody knows about, they're called the ultimate enzymes, but they're also a source of bile, and they can help support your bile system. Anything you can do to help support bile is going to support detoxification. The second element for a liver detoxification is a nutrient called glutathione, not a nutrient, but a biochemical called glutathione. Glutathione is a protein, technically it's a peptide, It's made up of 3 amino acids. And these 3 amino acids are glutamine, glycine, and cysteine. Glycine and glutamine and cysteine are found in dense, copious amounts in whey protein. So make sure you're using, and even glutathione itself is found in whey protein. So make sure you're using your Slender FX whey protein. And there's another protein here. What's the other protein that I'm thinking of here? It's in the liver, that's in the detox. You know, there's another protein that's in the 30-day detox program. I forgot what it is. But making sure you're getting enough whey protein is also a great strategy for taking care of the liver via glutathione. Then there's the lymph. The lymph is like a fluid system, like your circulatory system, like your blood system. But instead of blood, lymphatic fluid is circulated. Lymphatic fluid carries wastes. In addition to other things, lymphatic fluid carries wastes. And making sure you're moving your lymph is a major, major detoxification strategy. You probably heard the saying, sitting is the new smoking. And the reason this is so is because when we sit and when we're sedentary, we don't move our bodies, our lymph doesn't move. See, the lymph is like the blood vessels, except for one thing. The blood vessels have a pump on one end. The lymph doesn't have a pump. We're the pump. Our muscular movements are the pump. Our diaphragmatic breathing is the pump. Our rib cage going in and out is the pump. So you got to be able to move your body to move the lymph. One of the best ways to improve lymphatic circulation is by jumping up and down on a rebounder. A rebounder is a mini trampoline. Everybody should have them. They're like $60. You can keep them in your living room. They're amazing. You don't have to worry about any stress on your joints. You can get the same kind of workout that you can get by jogging without any stress. It's great for older folks. It's especially good when you feel like you're coming down with a cold or the flu. If you're coming down with a cold or a flu, you'll kind of, if you're sensitive to your body, you can kind of sense that your body's sort of slowing down. Right before you get sick, think about the last time you got sick. You'll notice maybe an hour or so before you start to show symptoms, you feel like you're in molasses a little bit, like things are a little bit slow. That's your lymph being sluggish. That's what the experience of a sluggish lymph. When that happens, start jumping up and down on a rebounder to get the lymphatic fluids moving. Another way you can get the lymphatic fluids moving is by hot and cold plunges. A lot of people, have you ever seen these people where they'll sit in a hot tub, and they'll jump in cold water, and they'll go back in the hot tub and then go in the cold water. That gives when that happens, when you're in the hot water, your lymphatic vessels are dilated, and then you jump in cold water, they contract. And then they dilate. When you're in the warm water again, they contract. You get this accordion-like effect. You don't have to go in a hot tub and a cold pool to do it. You do it in your shower. You just turn the hot water on, you turn the cold water on. You turn the hot water on, you turn the cold water on. Now, you do have to have a little bit of courage to do it, but it's a great way to circulate the lymph. The next organ is the kidneys. And this is one of the all-time great ways to detoxify, is drinking more water. Water helps flush the kidneys. Now, a lot of us are drinking water, and we're all walking around with water bottles. But one of the problems with drinking a lot of water is you tend to lose electrolytes and vitamin C as you urinate. The more water you drink, the more you urinate, the more you lose fluids. That's where Beyond Tangy Tangerine comes in. So drinking more water, but mixing in Beyond Tangy Tangerine with that water periodically is very important. In fact, one of the reasons why Beyond Tangy Tangerine is so effective for people who've never supplemented is because most people are drinking a lot of water, or drinking water anyway, and they're losing electrolytes. This is especially true in first thing in the morning. If you've gone to the bathroom, urinated once or twice in the middle of the night, you're in a dehydrated state first thing in the morning. Drinking water first thing in the morning is almost like drinking caffeine for some people, because you fluidize the blood. And the more fluidized the blood is, the more oxygen you get to cells, and the more blood and oxygen you get to your brain. Also, when you're drinking water first thing in the morning, and I recommend this for diabetics especially, make sure you're mixing in a little Beyond Tangy Tangerine for that same reason, because you're going to be losing electrolytes when you drink your water. Diabetics will notice, or diabetics who fall off the wagon will notice that they can control their blood sugar more effective by drinking more water, because of this dilution effect or fluidizing effect of the blood. Your blood sugar is measured as a concentration of sugar per amount of blood. The more dilute the blood is, the lower your blood sugar concentration will be. So this is a great tip for diabetics. It's a real easy thing to do as well. And then the last organ of detoxification is the skin. The skin is, toxins come out through the skin, and by supporting the movement of cells upwards from the bottom of the skin towards the top, women probably have heard of exfoliation, you can help remove toxins through the skin. So dry brushing is a great strategy, and also using exfoliating aids like a loofah pad or even a washcloth, or alpha hydroxy acids, glycolic acid, lactic acid, and such. These exfoliating aids will speed up the removal of toxicity through the skin. So you've got oxygenation, slow, deep breathing, simple, easy to do. You've got nutriation, the Mighty 90 essential nutrients and vegetable juices. I should also say macronutrition is also important. Protein is very important. And then also fats, believe it or not, are very important. I'm sure everybody on this call probably recognizes that fats are important. Most people out in the non-nutrition world or the non-longevity world still have fat phobia. It turns out you really need fat, and fat is really important for detoxification. And then the Mighty 90 essential nutrients and veggie juices. And then the third element, detoxification, focusing on the 6 organs of detoxification: the kidneys, drinking more water, using electrolytes, the skin, dry brushing and exfoliation, the liver, glutathione and supporting bile, the lungs, breathing correctly, the colon. Oh, I didn't say the colon, the intestine. Fiber for the intestine, making sure you're doing fiber on a regular basis, as well as probiotics. I love the Nightly Essence probiotics. Personally, that's my favorite probiotic supplement. I always put people on the Nightly Essence no matter what their health challenges. In fact, everybody needs probiotics, and no matter what their health challenge is. Probiotics help support the colon, and obviously the colon is not so much a detoxifying organ as much as it's an elimination organ. And then the lymph, moving the body, and diaphragmatic breathing, or hot and cold plunges, or jumping up and down on a rebounder. And that's pretty much the 3 elements of taking care of a cell: starvation, suffocation, and toxification being behind all health challenges, addressing starvation by using nutrition, addressing suffocation by using respiratory techniques, breathing techniques, and addressing detoxification by focusing on the 6 major detoxifying organs, and then fasting, of course, and intermittent fasting, meaning fasting a couple of times a month just for the heck of it. And you'll feel better when you don't eat for a little bit as well. If you've ever experienced fasting, you'll know that for the first day or even first half day, you feel miserable. But by the end of the first day, you're starting to feel really good. And if you can pull it off for 2 days, you almost don't even want to eat on the 3rd day. You feel so good that food looks scary to you. And that's the way it should be. Food should look scary to us. And by scary, I mean we want to respect food. We've lost respect for food, and it costs us. All right, so that's the main point I want to get across, is this is for all health challenges. It doesn't matter whether it's multiple sclerosis, or whether it's atherosclerosis, or whether it's acne, or whether it's Alzheimer's disease. All health challenges will improve when you focus on taking care of feeding the cell, breathing the cell, and giving the cell a clean place to do its work.